I'm Timothy James LeCain, and I'm an Associate Professor of History at Montana State University. I'm a Carson Fellow here at the Rachel Carson Center in Munich, and I'm working on this research project comparing American and Japanese environmental history of copper mining. I'm working on this project with my colleague from Montana State University, Brett Walker. We have a mine in Montana in Anaconda, and there's also a very similar copper mine in Ashio in Japan, and our goal is to compare the environmental histories of those two mines. When we started the project, and that's been almost 4 years now, what we thought we would end up doing is mostly discussing how these different environments and cultures led to different types of mining and different trajectories for the environmental history of the sites, in particular the pollution problems, which are very pronounced with this kind of mining. So we thought that we were going to mostly talk about how different they were and how the societies constructed or influenced the trajectory of the mining. By the end of the project, what we were more intrigued by was, in fact, not the divergence or the difference, but the convergence. The fact that ultimately, both of these mining sites devastated the landscape, just destroyed the natural environment through arsenic poisoning, through sulfur dioxide poisoning of the plants, through their secondary effects on key animal species that we're interested in. In the United States, we're particularly interested in cattle and all of the evocative meaning that cattle and ranching have for the American West. In Japan, our sort of star animal is the silkworm, and their production of silk, which is equally evocative for the Japanese, deep cultural resonance. And both of these animals were very badly damaged by the pollution caused from the mining. So you would sort of think, on the face of it, that would help to resist the encroachment of the mining, that would help to slow down the environmental degradation. But at the end of the day, it did not. That's what's interesting. Ultimately, the technology and the values of modernity associated with that technology and the desire for the copper from those mines, that's what really mattered. And it just swept aside these sort of cultural differences. So that's very interesting, because the fields of history of technology, history of science, environmental history to a lesser degree, have been dominated by sort of social constructivist ways of thinking. And this suggests we need to rethink that a little bit and say, why did the technology and those values overwhelm everything else? One thing that we hope to achieve with our book, or these articles, with the research that we've been doing, is to help the globe better understand what the prices are for developing large-scale minerals. Now, as the population of the globe grows, there is going to be greater and greater demand for minerals. So the question is, how can we do this in a way that doesn't devastate the environment the way it did in Japan and in Montana? And I think one message that we really want to try to convey is that this convergence seems to be happening everywhere. When you import these values, the values of modernity, when you import these technologies, the culture, the environment that exists before this don't seem to stop it. It seems to be almost relentless. We need to pay more attention to that. We as historians, as environmental thinkers, need to pay more attention to that. It's not just that different people construct technologies in different ways. They do. But it's also true that more and more of these technologies are overwhelming the global systems, and we need to think seriously about how to control them.